Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for our Life Beyond the Classroom at a US university. My name is Basha. I'm an Education USA advisor based at US UK Fulbright Commission in London. And today we're joined by Sammy Smith from High Point University in North Carolina. And Sammy will go through the webinar with us today and talk about what life looks like in beyond the classroom at US universities. You have opportunities to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Just pop them in the Q&A box and we'll get those answered at the end. Sammy, off to you.
Thank you so much, Basha. I appreciate the introduction and this opportunity. I love this topic. I think this is something that makes up a huge aspect of choosing to go to university in the US, but it doesn't necessarily get the recognition or the explanation that it needs, really. So again, my name's Sammy. I represent a university in North Carolina, which is on the southern east coast of the US. My campus happens to be a very campus oriented with a lot of these activities. And so, but I'll talk a little bit about, what it looks like on pretty, varied types of campuses, my own previous experiences, but also just kind of generally speaking. So again, we'll talk about kind of clubs, extracurriculars, events on campus, but then also the facilities, what you're going to eat, where you're going to live. That's kind of what the webinar is going to cover, but please would love to know what you all want to know as we're going through. So please definitely connect with us via the chat or the Q&A option. So to kind of get us started, why would it be beneficial? It could be, self-explanatory, but truly it has been proven. There is data behind this that it really benefits students when they come to university in the US to get involved in some capacity, right? This beautiful number talks about that students that are involved in some type of extracurricular are more likely to graduate. There's a big data point that shows that when you find, either a club or a sport or some type of organization to be a part of, you really heighten your sense of belonging on that campus. You find those people that you share similar goals with, maybe interests or values. That's really kind of the foundational reasoning why at US universities, we offer so many varied and diverse options for students to get a part of, because ultimately what you're interested in, there's someone else on your college or university campus that has that same interest. So why not make something from it and get some experience to build and make that CV, or what we like to say as a resume, very juicy and beneficial when you go on to that next step in applying for your future profession. So again, just to kind of there is some data behind it. So if you're questioning it at all, but it can also help your mental and physical wellness, but just give you a bunch of extra skills that are very transferable, that maybe will, directly align with what you end up doing as a career, or maybe it's something that's just going to make you a better professional. I also love a fun quote. So again, we can learn something from every person that we meet. So do so. All right. There are a wide kind of variety of different types of extracurriculars available at US universities. These are the kind of the main hubs, and I'm going to go through this presentation and kind of highlight and talk a little bit more in depth about what each of those look like. Ultimately, though, so I didn't designate a slide for this, but I did want to kind of highlight, how does one find out the opportunities available at a US university, especially when you are a student there? So a lot of universities will have kind of a database available to students. So when you're working through this process, if you're curious about a specific type of extracurricular or co-curricular to get involved in, want to know what it's like at that university, that's where those of us in admissions can come in to help. So you can reach out to us and say, hey, do you have, Model UN? What does that look like? Things like that. We can definitely be a resource and get you connected to people in those organizations on the campus, so they can really get you excited and really share what it's like to live in those shoes. But also for a lot of campuses, during kind of the first couple weeks that you start a semester in the fall, so for us it's usually kind of the last week in August, we always have an involvement fair. So this is where all of the different clubs, organizations, the sports teams, everybody will have a table, kind of like the USA College Day London Fair, if you've been to that event. Basically, we all kind of represent our organizations. And so that's a chance for you to physically go up to someone, find out, okay, how often do you meet? What's my commitment going to look like? Is there any type of fee or anything like that? Kind of aligned with being a part of that organization. And that's how you really can see what all is available to you, because you would be kind of impressed with how many different clubs and organizations exist on each of the different campuses, over hundreds of them. So the most popular type of club or organization to get a part of is going to be academically based. It's pretty self-explanatory. You are at a university to get a degree, and the best way to really maximize, networking opportunities, research opportunities, projects, things like that, is through a club associated to the major or program that you're earning your degree towards. So again, you'll find business clubs, biology clubs, engineering clubs, all the different types of academics. But also kind of a benefit of that is a chance for you to be in a smaller cohort with maybe upperclassmen, so like those seniors or those about to graduate students. As a first-year student, it's extremely beneficial if you know someone who's in their third or fourth year at a program, and to be able to say, hey, what professors do you recommend? What classes were really hard? What is kind of your words of wisdom, if you will, as I approach pursuing this degree? What surprised you? Things like that. So mentorship is really big within the students, but also there's always going to be faculty advisors and faculty engagement. So there's a chance for you to connect or build kind of a closer rapport with professors. Again, that's going to be helpful for maybe they can recommend you for internships, or maybe recommend you for research projects, things like that. Another piece that I think a lot of students think of when they think of academic clubs, they have to stay in kind of their own lane. But quite often we find students will kind of engage with academic clubs maybe as a secondary or like an alternate option that they've considered or have an interest in. So kind of the best examples are, we have a lot of students interested in entrepreneurship and maybe owning their own businesses or running their own companies, things like that. So Entrepreneurship Club is actually one of the biggest clubs on campus, even though most of the students aren't necessarily studying that as their full degree, because again, they can take away the skills that you would learn in different conversations, go to different seminars and things like that, to take and kind of add to their repertoire, if you will. So again, there's a lot of things that can be beneficial to students to be a part of different academic clubs on their campus, and joining one or two of them. The second really big kind of club or organization on a lot of US universities, I'm not familiar if this is popular or an option at UK universities, but Student Government Association is really big at US universities. For most of the makeup of, as far as student organizations go, student government is kind of the head. So what they do and what they serve as is, each class, so your first, second, third, fourth years, they all have class representatives that kind of speak for their student body of that class. So they're a part of the panel that's kind of asking or requesting, invoking change on a college campus. So they're part of the decision-making student body. The president of the Student Government Association, they're actually part of higher level kind of administration conversations. Usually they're invited to those, board of trustee meetings, things like that, where honestly, that's where the decisions are made to make changes on campuses. So it's a really great way if you are interested in going into some type of politics, or again, you're just passionate about things changing on your university campus, Student Government Association is going to be something to really consider and think about. Then we have, probably the most interesting, but also kind of foreign or misunderstood kind of student organization option is Greek life. So fraternity and sorority life at US universities. It's a very, cliche thing that we see a lot of depictions in movies and film that to a degree are accurate, but there are some that are a little bit dramatized, right? But basically, for anyone interested in really finding that kind of quick social connection, Greek life is a great option to consider because that is kind of the foundational for most fraternities and sororities. It is that social component. So again, you're looking to find those fast friends, but there's a lot of elements to being a part of a fraternity and sorority that I think again get kind of overlooked if you yourself are coming from a family or social network that isn't as familiar with Greek life. That was me when I was going into university, and I learned quite a lot about it. So a lot of organizations, they really focus a lot of their time on certain philanthropies or community service. So there's that community engagement piece that goes along with being part of an association or organization. They often have a national organization where they are raising money or donating time and things like that to a specific philanthropy or mission. Each fraternity and sorority has an executive board, so there's a chance for students to really gain that leadership. If you are super into social media and marketing, there's usually a marketing chair. There's an event kind of role. Again, there's a lot of ways to really kind of tap into maybe your interests or skills that doesn't necessarily get fulfilled during your studies. So again, that leadership component is really big. And then also from an academic standpoint, every organization has kind of grade requirements and expectations of their members. Also, from an academic standpoint, you're going to meet peers or sisters or brothers in your organization that are in your major, and maybe they're older than you. And again, there's that kind of mentorship from an academic standpoint to kind of help you make sure that you're on a path to be successful. But definitely, again, Greek life, it's mainly that social component. I will say there are some Greek organizations that are academically driven. So we have a business fraternity. It's co-ed on our campus. That's really popular for students to get involved in. And again, the mission really is social, but it's also heavily academic and focusing on those business skills and networking and things like that. There's also a lot of multicultural organizations. So again, from a diversity standpoint, that's a way for you to find people that, you see yourself in your own community and your background. So again, there's a lot to the umbrella of Greek life that I think a lot of people, again, unless you know someone who's been involved in them, it's kind of a big enigma, if you will, a question mark, if you will. But Greek life, again, very positive experiences. And then we have the umbrella of recreation or sports. This is definitely a hot topic I find when I'm on the road and meeting with students such as yourselves and talking about athletics in the US. I know a lot of people believe that, oh, I'm going to go on and get an athletic scholarship. So I just want to kind of explain that there's kind of main two categories as far as athletics or sports go at US universities. So NCAA division sports, that's going to be your Division I, Division II, Division III. There's three main divisions. NCAA division teams, those are usually where you have an opportunity to earn some scholarship. There are some schools with club scholarships, but primarily, if you're thinking, oh, I really want to help fund my education through an athletic scholarship, it's going to usually be down that pathway with NCAA. There is a formal recruitment process, but because basically you're on that trajectory to hopefully eventually, fingers crossed, go professional or semi-professional. Those events that you can go to at your university for those kind of official teams is really exciting. Again, that's where all the school spirit comes from. I talk about this a little bit later, but again, this is going to be your official games for your university. And then we have intramural and club sports. Again, those two terms are used slightly interchangeably depending on the institution that you're looking at, but usually one is going to be where you're just playing other teams within your university. So they're a lot more casual. A lot of students will do this. Maybe they've never played a sport before, but they just want to have that kind of physical aspect to their time. So again, it's joining a group of friends, going and playing other students at your university much more casually. Then one will also be an option for students that maybe don't want the, the high level competitive of the division sports, but wants to still travel, play other universities, and have that tryout experience. That's going to be for our institution, for example, it's club sports. So again, you still have that travel component. It's still competitive, but you're still managing it very easily with your time. When you're in the NCAA division sports, athletics is very much 50 with academics and your athletic schedule. With the club and intramural, it's going to be much more academic. You have more time for your academics, things like that. So again, a lot of people get involved in sports because they grew up with a sports background, and they want to carry that over into college or university. Then we have recreational services. So every university will have a recreational services office. Their mission is to create opportunities and experiences for students to engage in different, outdoors kind of activities. And usually there's no cost to the students to be a part or to take advantage of these. It's kind of a first come, first serve. So for example, the picture you see here is a rock climbing wall. This is not something that's always there, but that's something that they do every so often throughout the school year. In North Carolina, we have the U.S. Whitewater Center down in Charlotte. So we've had students go on trips down there and do a whitewater kind of rafting trip. Also, we're close to the mountains. They do annual ski trips. So these are just different types of examples of trips and kind of experiences that our rec services office have offered, but that's very consistent with other universities, depending on what they have access to kind of in their backyard or in their state as well. And then we have a lot of students really interested in getting involved in more religious or cultural groups on campus, because again, that's a big part of the student's identity. You want to find those people that share those same values, either spirituality or culture and background. And a lot of that comes with the celebrations, right? I love this part of the university experiences because again, it brings education. A lot of, the benefit of going abroad, but also having students from a variety of different backgrounds is that brings that education component to learn about new cultures and new religions. A lot of the university organizations will work together to kind of host these celebrations. Maybe they'll have kind of interfaith conversations or meals, things like that to, again, create that dialogue to understand perspectives, but also celebrate each other. So again, that celebration and awareness component go hand in hand with the different groups on campus. And so some universities also have active prayer spaces, chapels, different services on their campus as well. And so definitely, if this is important to you, ask your university that you're looking into about those facilities and options on campus. Also, a lot of these organizations will do different mission trips, or, they'll do kind of traveling to different places to kind of give back. So again, if community service is also important to you, this is another really common way for students to really get that impact in their experience. Then we cannot forget the arts, right? So a lot of us have that creativity to us, but maybe you don't necessarily want to commit the whole time to, earning a full degree in a performing or visual arts, or maybe you do. But ultimately, at most institutions, we really encourage our students to stay involved with the arts because there's a lot of benefit to having that kind of time built into your schedule. So again, a lot of kind of the primary ways to get involved is going to be maybe through those performing arts, so theater, music, or dance. But then there's also the category of the visual arts, so studio art, painting, sculpting, drawing, all of those types of things. A lot of universities will have a calendar, of concerts, of productions. If you yourself want to get more involved in behind the scenes, those are all different ways that you can get involved in the different arts programs at the universities that you're looking for. And again, we definitely want to encourage our students to continue that creativity, even if you're an engineering student. There's always time to practice your guitar. Um, so that's another big area that students want to get involved in. And then finally, community service is extremely popular with students. A lot of students from the high school level or secondary level, you do get involved in community service, and so you want to carry that over into your university experience. Or maybe you've always wanted to kind of give back and just didn't know how to start. Most of our campuses will put on campus-wide events. Also, we've kind of touched on this throughout this presentation, but a lot of the other organizations or clubs will incorporate community service into their annual calendar. But there are some organizations that are specifically helping support different missions. Habitat for Humanity is a really big organization in the US. So that's going and helping build homes, for people that had experienced natural disasters or other different scenarios. The picture here, this was an activity where our students were coming together to stuff stockings. So during the holiday time, and then what they were doing is then they'd go deliver them to shelters kind of in the city of High Point. So that way people maybe didn't have families or didn't have a way to celebrate, they still got something to take away, and giving them things like hats and gloves, because believe it or not, it does get cold here. So that's going to be helpful during that holiday winter season. So again, community service is another big popular area that students want to get involved in. Then, generally speaking, I did want to touch on the campus events that universities will put on. So those were kind of the areas of clubs and organizations to get involved in, but there are students that choose not to, but they still want to be involved in their greater campus experience. So a lot of universities will put on things like concerts or festivals, or again, going to those major sport events for your campus to showcase your spirit. These are all usually free to you as a university student when you're an active member. So it's free ways to kind of fill that time, do fun things. Truly, the U.S. universities are like mini cities. For most of us, our campus is so vibrant. Our students are living there, right? We want to give you those times to really have fun and enjoy your campus experience. And so these are just some of the main kind of components that are included in that. I mentioned the week of welcome. There's also, campuses will put on different festivals. Like we like to bring in food trucks from local vendors. And then this is a picture of, they brought in a bunch of like inflatable bouncy like houses and like slides and things like that. So it's just an element of fun, right? Because we want to foster that fun time with your friends when you're on the campus. And usually these are happening in the evenings or on the weekends, right? So if you're not able to travel home because it's just a 2-day weekend, we want to give you things to do with your time. So again, it's like a little city all on its own. And then kind of switching gears a little bit. So as far as facilities, so we talk about being like in its own city. It is truly the case, especially with the food options that U.S. universities offer. A lot of universities will offer some of the name brands that are popular here in the U.S. Things like Starbucks. We have Chick-fil-A, which is huge here. Subway is very common. So every university will be different as far as what type of like name brand that they'll have. Usually they're going to be smaller, like quick service, grab and go. A lot of U.S. universities, especially during COVID, we have the mobile ordering options. That's kind of how you can access those foods. But then there's also, we have lots of kind of mini convenience stores. So kind of like going and grabbing, a couple sandwiches or chips or crisps, things to keep in your dorm room so you can have at any given point. Maybe you're up late at night studying and you need that kind of pick me up. So there's going to be those market style places. We also, again, bring food trucks. That's really common, especially for for campuses that have nice weather. We like to engage our students, bring them outside. Also, you'll find, not super common, but there are some campuses like ours that have really nice restaurants. We have the picture here is of our hibachi restaurant on campus. Again, not saying that to say that that's very common, but that's just a layer of the different kind of range of dining that you'll have. Also, most commonly, you're going to have your buffet experiences. So ultimately, whenever you're on a U.S. university, you're going to have a meal plan of some sort. So this is where included in your cost of tuition and your housing, you're basically going to have an allotment of different meal swipes. And then usually there's also a budget for, just kind of a la carte spending. So again, each university structures their meal plan differently. So that's definitely something important to ask. But definitely we cater to all the different types of dietary needs and, different diets. So if you're concerned, okay, maybe you have certain allergies or, things that you need kind of addressed. Again, these are all important questions to raise to the admissions department when you're in that search or doing your research on the website. But definitely, you're not going to go hungry is what I always tell students. You'll eat well, and usually the food is really good. And then from a housing perspective, we offer almost kind of the full range of different types of housing. So, you definitely envision kind of that college dorm. So you and a roommate sharing a room, you may have a hall bathroom. You get a lot of friends in that kind of environment because it's like wall to wall different suites. But then there's also apartments, there's townhomes. We have these like 3-bedroom houses that we offer, things like that. So there's a wide variety. Usually from housing perspective, you have certain housing that's available to first-year students. Most campuses, especially as an international student, you'll be required to live on, they'll have a kind of a minimum number of years that you have to live on campus housing. A lot of institutions, maybe it's common that you live on campus 1 year and then you live off campus the next. Some institutions will guarantee housing all 4 years. These are all the types of questions to ask when you're looking through the process and considering where am I going to live. But again, majority of the U.S. universities will have on-campus housing available to you. So you don't have to worry about signing a lease or finding where am I going to live or who am I going to live with. We always have kind of access to kitchens. So you see this picture in the top left of people kind of, it looks like they're all trying to cook some type of dinner together. But that's one of the residents' houses kind of communal kitchens. They usually come with a study space and a desk. So you'll see that gentleman in the far right top corner. He's working on his kind of homework or things like that. So you have a space like that. Again, we'll give you access to a bathroom and we provide the beds. Usually you just have to bring like your own like bedding and things like that, which if you're traveling to the US, just wait till you get here. We'll take you shopping. That's usually part of that first couple of days that you're on campus. So don't feel like you need to pack that or ship it over. But yeah, so again, most universities, I'll just say this kind of as a lasting point for housing. Most of us have virtual tours of our housing options on our websites. I know it's not the same as walking your feet into the room, but it is going to give you kind of an idea, especially once you know where you're going and you're trying to plan ahead. We usually give you the dimensions and what comes in the room and things like that. So when you're doing your homework and looking for things, go to social media, go to the websites. We usually have that accessible to you. So that, kind of concludes the official kind of part of the presentation. I feel like I ran through that, but what questions do you have?
Thank you, Sammy. That was wonderful. Lots of useful information. Yes, please, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. Before anyone has a chance to type in a question, could you explain what tailgating is? Because this isn't a familiar thing in the UK. I know what it is, but I don't know if a lot of the students will know.
Yes, no, sorry, I put that on there intentionally. So tailgating is it's a custom or tradition here in the US. Usually it's tied to football, so American football. But there are some institutions that don't have American football, so they may tailgate for basketball games. But essentially what it is it's the student body kind of gathering, and it's like you're outside, usually in kind of like a parking lot right near in close proximity to the stadium that the game will be held at. And usually it's some people have food and like they're kind of grilling out. A lot of people, there's lots of drinks there, you know, so it's just kind of a pre-game, if you will, to the official game. So yeah, again, it's a lot of fun. There's people that will bring like they'll set up. It depends on usually it's kind of a lot of organizations will tailgate and they'll have their tents. And so there's usually like outdoor activities like cornhole is really popular. Some people will have like bocce balls or you know things like that. So that's ultimately what tailgating is.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Doesn't seem like we have any questions. Your presentation was so great. I think you answered all the questions. My only thing is that when you mentioned the student government, we do have something similar at
Okay.
UK universities. It's the student union where students, current students, and also alumni can run to be part of the student union. And there's different roles, like you got president, secretary, treasurer, and they still attend meetings with the university staff to basically bring that student voice forward. But I believe in America, it's much bigger and a lot more students can get involved than in the UK.
Okay, okay, that's good to know. We use the term student union to usually represent like the facility or the building on campus. And that's where the hub for usually that's your bookstore will be located there, a bunch of the food options, but also that's usually the home to the organizations. So that does make me think to say if you are on a campus and you're want to get involved, usually there's an office that you can go to talk to people. Also, a lot of students, we encourage them to start a club. So if there's something that you're passionate about that you found doesn't exist already, usually the Student Government Association kind of representatives will help advise students on how to get a club or organization added and approved. Usually you have to have, I think, like 5 or 10 members, and usually some type of faculty advisor who's kind of signed on to be that advisor. So it is pretty straightforward, but there is paperwork, as is there is all things. But yeah, so good to know that student union is student government in a way in the UK.
Yeah, it's kind of joined together. It depends. Each university runs it different, but that's basically the closest equivalent to what you have over there in America. Yeah, it doesn't seem like we have any questions, but you could see on the bottom, there's some contact details to send me directly, and you could check out the university. And also, if you need any help for your application or finding the right university or helping find clubs because you're struggling to find ones that you're looking for, you could always email us at Fulbright. So our email is advising@fulbright.co. No, advising@fulbright.org.uk. Long day. Sammy, once again, thank you so much for this wonderful webinar. It was very useful. I hope you have a great rest of your day because it's still quite early over there in North Carolina.
Yes.
It's
It's lunchtime for us.
lunchtime. Oh, okay. Well, I hope you have a great lunch. And once again, thank you so much. And just for everyone here, the webinar will be available for you to view again later this week. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Bye.